Welcome to the next installment of the Train Vicar. Today I'm on Beely Spur near Arthur's Pass, and I want to do things a little bit differently today. First, I want to do my reflection and then get on to the train stuff. So I want to talk about wisdom, which in the book of Proverbs is personified. So for example, we read in chapter 8, "The Lord brought me," that is wisdom, "forth as the first of his works, before his deeds of old. I was appointed before the mountains were settled in place, before the hills were there. I was there when God set the heavens in place, when he marked out the horizon on the face of the deep. I was filled with delight at God's side, rejoicing always in his presence, rejoicing in the whole world and delighting in mankind. Now my children, listen to me. Blessed are those who keep my ways." So with that, the Bible, it's very poetic, but essentially it wants to say that there's wisdom in the natural world around us, but also in the things that humans do and the creative things that they get up to. And so here on Beely Spur, I often reflect on that, because you've got the beautiful natural world around you, with the Beely River over there and the Waimakariri and the confluence of the two rivers. But you've also got what humans have made, namely the road that then leads across the mountains. And more importantly for me, of course, the Midland Line, which connects the west coast and the east coast of the South Island. And so in that we see both wisdom in nature and the creativity of humans. So I want to talk about some of the trains that go through those valleys down below. Here's one of those trains making its way through the mountain valleys and then on a bridge across the Beely River. That's actually not one of the regular trains on the Midland Line, but rather the transfer of some new locomotives to Otira for testing. One of the more regular trains is this coal train, bringing coal from the west coast across the southern Alps. There are normally more than 30 coal trains a week from the west coast to Lyttelton. They bring coal to the port of Lyttelton for export. On their journey, they travel through this alpine landscape and also through the Otira Tunnel. One of the biggest mines is the Stockton coal mine. The coal from there is carried by truck and then by aerial cableway to Ngakawau. In Ngakawau, the coal is moved into these big coal bins, and from there the coal trains are loaded. These days, the trains are normally hauled by 2 DXC locomotives. Normally about 29 to 30 wagons long, these trains are split in two for loading at Ngakawau. The locomotives slowly haul the wagons under the coal bin, and the coal is dropped from above into the wagons. Soon the train is on its way, first along the west coast. Here on the coastal strip between the steep hills with the wild Tasman Sea in the background. This train crosses the Waimangaroa River. I actually took this video from Denniston, a former mining village high on a windy plateau above the coast. From 1880 to 1967, a self-acting incline operated from Denniston to the coastal area below. Here, coal wagons were moved from the plateau to the railway for transport to Westport.
The system is the same as its day of inception, self-powered, with a laden truck going down, pulling an empty truck up. The trucks are connected by a continuous cable controlled by a hydraulic brake drum. The trip down is fast, over grades that at the most severe reach 1 in 1 1/3. At middle break, the trucks are changed over for the descent of the second half of the incline. Each truck carries 7 tons of coal in a 4-minute journey to the bottom. At the bottom of the incline, the trucks roll onto the railway siding for haulage to Westport.
These days, coal is no longer shipped through the port of Westport, but taken on the long journey over the Southern Alps to the deep water port of Lyttelton. The biggest obstacle here are the mountains around Arthur's Pass and the Otira Gorge. An 8.55 kilometer long tunnel was driven through the Southern Alps from the Otira River to the village of Arthur's Pass. This tunnel was completed in 1923 and from the outset was operated by electric locomotives. Through this tunnel, the loaded coal trains have to battle up the steep 1 in 33 grade from the Otira River to Arthur's Pass. Since 1997, electric locomotives no longer operate through the Otira Tunnel. Instead, diesel bankers are used to bring the trains through the tunnel. The X locomotives operating through the tunnel were modified, most visibly with air chutes that draw fresh air from under the running boards, while the exhaust fumes are expelled up at the top. In addition, once a train enters the tunnel, a sliding door on the Otira side closes the tunnel and large fans start up to extract the fumes from the tunnel. Once the coal trains then arrive in Arthur's Pass, the bankers are left there and the trains continue with 2 locomotives towards Lyttelton. On their way, they pass through the impressive mountain landscape here. That's when they can be seen from Beely Spur. Just beyond Cass, the trains have to climb the Cass bank to reach the St Bernard Saddle, and from there the line then descends relatively gently alongside Sloven Stream past the Craigieburn Highlands. In the past, this section up the Cass bank was quite the feat for steam locomotives to conquer. Today the diesel locomotives notch up as they haul the heavy coal trains up the grade. The coal trains then travel alongside the Waimakariri River Gorge until they come to the Canterbury Plains near Springfield. From there, the coal trains hurry down the sloping plains towards the sea. The trains arrive in the railway yards in Christchurch and the locomotives are detached for servicing. Another set of locomotives is attached to the coal train for the coal dump to Lyttelton. So the trains make their way from Christchurch to Lyttelton, where the trains are hauled slowly across the coal dump facility. As each wagon comes across the coal pit, doors at the bottom of the hopper wagons are opened and the coal rushes out. From there, conveyor belts move the coal further down the facility, where it is then pushed into heaps. As coal ships arrive at the port of Lyttelton, the coal is then moved on conveyor belts again and then loaded onto these large ships. West Coast coal is used in steel production mainly in Northeast Asia. Well, and then the trains have to make their way back to the West Coast again to repeat the cycle. From Lyttelton, they make their way through the 2.6 kilometer long Lyttelton Rail Tunnel. In Christchurch, the train locomotives are attached again, and the journey of the trains of empty wagons continues. In Ralston, the trains leave the main South Line and head northwest across the Canterbury Plains towards the mountains. Once upon a time, the strong KB steam locomotives were stationed in Springfield to move heavy freight trains to and from Arthur's Pass. Today, coal trains only stop in Springfield to cross another train or for a crew change, for example here in this case. past the Waimakariri River over several viaducts, the trains then make their way again to the Craigieburn High Country, and from there to the upper regions of the Waimakariri River. In Arthur's Pass, they again plunge into the Otira Tunnel for their journey underneath the Southern Alps. From there, the trains go to Stillwater, Rapahoa, Ikamatua, Maimai, Reefton or Ngakabau. If the trains are going all the way back to Ngakabau, they have to make their way through the Buller Gorge to near Westport and then again alongside the coastal strip. From there, the journey begins again, so that more coal is carried across the mountains. That's a pretty fascinating and sophisticated operation, and we can justifiably see some wisdom and some skill in it. But maybe overall there's also a bit of lack of wisdom there and some folly. I mean, you know, as a world we need to cut down on the burning of fossil fuel. Then also, well, here's a pretty good railway across the mountains, and yet a lot of the goods are carried by road across the mountains here, by truck. Why is not more carried by rail? So here's a bit of folly. Well, and then it's good that we've got a passenger train across these mountains. It's the Transalpine train. The carriages on this train have panoramic windows, and there's a full food service in a premier class, even with a kitchen carriage attached. It's really an experience for tourists and priced that way as well. But the only stations in the mountains at which the Transalpine stops are Arthur's Pass and Otira. The Transalpine is a pretty fancy tourist train, but why are there no passenger train services that can bring people to the many recreation opportunities? Right here in the Arthur's Pass National Park, the railway line passes right by them. So that's a bit of folly. So here, up here, among the mountains and with a road and railway line in the valley below, we can contemplate both wisdom and folly.